everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today it is time for the last Friday reads of April because it is April 25th, and next Friday we will be into May. I'm planning to do my May TBR video this weekend, and here it comes, another month. So I hope you've been having a good week. Mine has been just fine. I have several good books to talk about. And it is also Independent Bookstore Week, and tomorrow's Independent Bookstore Day. What I'm planning to do is to go visit a new little store that has been having a soft opening this month that I just found out about a couple of days ago. And I don't know if I will actually find a book in this store because, okay, it looks really cute. It's called The Cookie Plot, and it's a romance-oriented bookstore, and it's in a little shopping center where all the stores and restaurants look like little houses. I don't know what this was originally, but it's like they all look like little beach houses. There's a Thai restaurant that we like that we frequent over there, and a couple of the shops. And there's a little free library also in that shopping center, so I'm going to bring a few things to stick in there. But I'm going to go investigate. And apparently there's sort of a bakery part too. So if there's not a book for me, there might at least be a cookie. In a television viewing, there is really seriously nothing interesting to report. We're just rewatching Breaking Bad. We're somewhere in season 2, I think. It's fun because we remember and then don't remember and then don't remember what's going on. So let's just jump right into the books. So overall in April, I had this as always, kind of a ridiculous TBR, but I actually read most of the books in this TBR. I'm still reading a couple of them, and I think I would have actually had a chance to get through the whole thing, except of course I went off path and read some different books that weren't in there at all, which is my prerogative. As always, there's going to be some rollover. I mean, there's at least one book that I've got some books on my cart that I'm too embarrassed to even put in a TBR anymore. They've been in there so many times and been passed over so many times that they're just going to have to be a surprise when I finally actually read them. But anyway, overall, it's been a satisfying month. All right, first of all, I did finish reading The Days of Anna Madrigal by Armistead Maupin. This is number 9 of 10 books in the Tales of the City series. This one was billed for about the 3rd time as being the last one in the series. I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite because they weren't in San Francisco. That's part of the draw of the whole thing, so I love San Francisco. And the other thing is the characters, they kind of split off into 2 camps because part of the characters go on this road trip to help their friend Anna, who's 92, deal with some unfinished business in her past that she wants to go back to where she came from, and she's got a little something she wants to do. And then the other characters go to the Burning Man festival, and I could not be less interested in that festival, and it did not get any better. It just was kind of ridiculous, and you could tell that Maupin loves this festival and thought this was so amusing and all of the hijinks in the festival. But I loved the book anyway because all of my character friends were in there. I just kind of wish they'd all been together and in the city. It's sort of like in a TV show when there's this great ensemble cast and then they do a season where they're in 2 different places. Somebody moves away or whatever, and they split it up, and it's just not the same, like the chemistry. So there was kind of that kind of problem going on. But he did manage to rope in almost all of the familiar characters, or at least they were mentioned in this book, and I enjoyed it. Then I read a book that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and it's kind of a mixed experience. And that was Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. This book was on a lot of top 10 lists. It's been on some prize lists. I'm not going to say it doesn't deserve those spots, but I do think this book was kind of overhyped. I thought for me this was a strong debut novel. There was some really good writing in it, but it was really uneven as well. Kaveh Akbar is a poet. This is why I chose it to begin with for April, because I put in a couple of novels by poets. he can write, and sometimes he writes beautifully in this book, and other times just kind of grandiose. Let me just tell you a little bit about what it's about and comment on a few strengths and weaknesses. So this is the story of Cyrus Shams, who's a young man approaching 30 who has weathered some hardships. His family came from Iran. His mother died when he was very young, when he was a baby, in a plane crash from a real-life historical incident when the U.S. shot down, apparently accidentally, a passenger plane, and everybody died. So his mother died in this, and then his father decided to immigrate to the U.S. with his young son in hopes of providing a more stable future for him. And his father had to give up a decent white-collar job and go to work in a chicken factory for many years doing manual labor. When Cyrus goes to college, he develops problems with drugs and alcohol. His father also passes away during that time, and then he has to go into recovery. And so when we get some flashbacks to different points in time during those years, and when the narrative picks up, he has finished college, he has become sober. All through this whole time, he has lived with his best friend and roommate, Z, who in solidarity also has become sober, even though he did not have addiction. And he is kind of just spinning his wheels. He's a poet, but he's not really writing. He has this odd job where he role plays different types of patients at a hospital for the doctors in training so they can work on their demeanor. And he just kind of hangs out in coffee shops, and he's really kind of full of himself. So Cyrus is kind of hard to take in this book. I can both sympathize with his being at that crossroads and wanting to find some meaning and purpose in life, but he can be so self-absorbed and so pretentious. He goes around telling people, when they ask him what he's doing, he says, "I'm living the poetry I've not yet written." I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Interesting writing for Cyrus. And he has this whole obsession with martyrdom, and he wants to write this book of poetry about all of the martyrs of history, but then ending with himself because he thinks that a meaningful death is nigh. So he finds out about this woman named Orchidee, who is a performance artist and a visual artist, and she has this installation at the Brooklyn Museum where she's dying of cancer, and she sits in this room. She's living in this room in the museum, and people can come and talk to her and have a conversation about life and death. So his friends find this and they say, "Look, this looks like it would fit in with your concept and your project." And so he and his friend Z go on this trip to New York to talk to this artist. Okay, that's the main gist of the plot. And then so what works well for me in this book is the narrative shifts of the point of view, because we have chapters that are dedicated to different people, and we get some substance from his best friend Z, who's my favorite character in the book. We get some backstory about his mother, his father, his uncle, and those to me were all really well written and really interesting. Also, his writing about addiction, I thought that was really well done. And sometimes the prose just really sparkles. What I didn't like was sometimes the prose just gets really bogged down in sort of overblown, almost pretentious kind of, it just gets too, I don't know, it's not even flowery. It's just kind of bloated prose in different parts. There's also, and usually it's coming out of Cyrus, so it just helps to make him really difficult. I don't need to like him, but sometimes, and it's funny because then again I think, well, it's actually kind of really well done, because other characters will just say, I don't get it. And I'm thinking, oh, that's me. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to understand. I don't get it. The other thing that didn't work well for me is there are some interspersed chapters that are dream sequences. There's Cyrus's dreams, and they're conversations that are really weird combinations, like his mother and Lisa Simpson, or another one, it's his imaginary brother who never really existed named Beethoven Shams with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And those I'm not sure what he was going for there, but it was distracting. It took me out of a pretty compelling plot and a pretty serious personal journey that Cyrus was having, and then it was like they were just kind of goofy. So I don't know how they were supposed to hit, but they didn't hit right, and they were distracting. Overall, though, it was just kind of uneven. It didn't all hang together that well. And there's something in this book. Don't read this. Don't read this. There's something in there that put a seed in my mind where I figured out something right from the get-go that I shouldn't have known until later in the book that might have affected my overall take on the book. So I'm just going to say that. If you read it, don't read that. And so that's Martyr. All right. Then I went off the track, off the TBR, and just all of a sudden I had to read Lady Susan. I had to reread Lady Susan by Jane Austen. I mean, this just came out of the blue. I was looking at my cart for the next book I was going to read, and I didn't want to read any of them. And I thought, well, what do I want to read? And it just dropped down like a deus ex machina, or however you say it. And yeah, Lady Susan just came down on a little gondola. And so I picked up this. It's a collection of early writings of Jane Austen and juvenilia. And I've read Lady Susan before. I love Lady Susan. If you need something to clear your mental palette, to lighten your load, I highly recommend Lady Susan. So Jane Austen wrote Lady Susan when she was, I think, 19-ish, and you can see all of these sparks of her later genius in this story. She doesn't have all of her tools quite sharpened yet, but it is such a pleasure. It is an epistolary story about a really naughty lady. And when I read this, both times when I read it, I just thought about how young Jane must have been such a keen observer. As a young girl, as a child, she must have just put in her hours and her days just watching the adults' behavior, because the repartee in these letters it just really shines. And so let me set it down because it's heavy. It is a story, as I said, it's an epistolary story. It's a series of letters about a woman named Lady Susan, who is we would call her a young widow. She's middle-aged and kind of over the hill in this story, even though she's in her mid-30s. But she is a widow. She has a teenage daughter. And at the beginning of the story, we find out that she has been spending time in the home, in the Jane Austen era, people go and then they stay for weeks and months at some friend or relative's house. So she's been at this one home, and there's been some sort of a rupture, and she is suddenly writing and sort of inviting herself to her late husband's brother's house. They are kind of surprised. His wife is quite surprised at this turn of events because Lady Susan has been extremely rude and obnoxious to them in the past, tried to thwart this marriage, didn't want her brother-in-law to marry this particular woman, but they did, and they have a family. And now all of a sudden she's acting like that never happened, and she wants to come visit her dear relatives. Right away, Kath Vernon, this wife, is writing to her mother saying, I don't know what's going on, but guess who's coming to visit? And Lady Susan, she is just a player. She likes to insinuate herself into the family. She must flirt with all the men. She must have their attention. And I think Austen implies that it goes farther than flirting. But she's very genteel about the whole thing, the way she writes it. She fools around with married men. She fools around with single men. She tries to get them up to the point of wanting to marry her, of disrupting marriages. She interferes in engagements, and she does it for sport. She has one friend named Alicia who she writes to some letters where she reports on all of her little exploits. And this lady is married, and her husband is onto the scheme and keeps trying to interfere, not letting her spend much time with Lady Susan. And the whole thing is just delightful. It makes me think that not only did she sit around and observe a whole lot of social behavior, misbehavior, but I think she probably read Dangerous Liaisons as well, and has written kind of a tamer take on those kinds of dalliances. And it's just a lot of fun. She does manage to capture the different voices of the women writing the letters. All the letters are, well, not all the letters are not all women, but mainly women. Kath to her mother, the two naughty friends, and some other pieces of correspondence. She also has all of the women being completely on to Lady Susan, and all of the men, save for one, just absolute dolts who get fooled by her, get completely bamboozled, and they're not very rich or complete characters. She improved greatly in that regard as when she matured and began to write novels, but it is a lot of fun. I do contend that the all-time best novel ever written by a teenager is Frankenstein, but this one is a worthy addition to the list of wonderful books written by teenagers, and it's just a lark. So if you just need a fun little pastime, it's novella length, it's kind of short. Lady Susan. It was time to revisit. No sense waiting for Jane Austen July. That brings us up to the current reads. And I'm reading something that is in no way light and sparky and larky. It is The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan. This is a buddy read with my friend Michael Clark. So I'm not going to say too much of it because we haven't gotten too deep into the discussion. When we started out, he was ahead and then I got ahead. So we need to kind of corral and get back and discuss some things. It's the story of a young Australian doctor named Dorigo Evans, who ends up in a Japanese POW camp. I think they're located in Thailand. They're supposed to be building this railroad. And it's just the conditions in the camp start out bad and get worse and worse. Just this incredibly harrowing descent into just horrific conditions and horrific human behavior. Before he leaves, he falls in love with a married woman who is married to his uncle, who married a much younger woman. He falls in love. He's supposed to be getting engaged to this other woman, Ella, who's his appropriate match. He likes her and everything, but then when he meets Amy, he realizes what love really is. He falls desperately in love, and they have this brief affair before he gets called up and sent to war. So it goes back and forth in time between the Dorigo and Amy thing, Dorigo and Ella, the war, the camp. We go around to some different points of view. It's just really dark and disturbing. I mean, it's nothing that I didn't expect being in a story about a POW camp. That's really where the best writing is too, in these terrible scenes, and the points of view of different men in the camp. He writes the men really well. He doesn't write women very well. I still have some parts of the book left to finish, but so far that is my caveat, is the love scenes and the scenes that are supposed to describe the women or represent the women's point of view weren't that successful to me. But everything about Dorigo and the other men and the camp, and even it's interesting, he includes the points of view of the Japanese commanders, and you just get this bigger picture of how futile and pointless all of the situation was, and the different ways that everybody is just trapped and their decline, their mental decline, the whole thing. So I went and said a whole bunch of stuff when I said I wasn't, but it's a really good book. It's harsh, but it is. I understand why it won the Booker Prize. So I may come back and do some final thoughts after we've talked about it more. I guess I kind of went ahead and talked about it, but anyway, that's what I've been reading. And then to balance that out a little bit, I'm reading something that is, I mean, it's not light, but it's a whole different tone and a different kind of book, and that is Brother Bronte by Fernando Flores. I talked about this author and this book a little bit in my video about the San Antonio Book Festival because we saw him there. And then I was really eager to get started on the book, and it's no accident that there's a volcano. I'm not sure how the volcano is going to fit into the story, but I know how it fit into his influences in writing this story, and I'll mention that in a minute. But Stephen read this book a few weeks ago. He really liked it, and then we saw the author, and now it's my turn. So this is a Texas, it's set in Texas. It's a dystopian tale. It's not that far in the future. I'm not sure exactly. It's in the future, 20 years from now, something like that. And it's set in Three Rivers, Texas, which is a real town. It's not really the town. I mean, the real town is different than the town in the book. The location is the same, but it's not like he finally dissected the real town of Three Rivers. He just kind of used it geographically, I think. I looked up the town out of curiosity, and the current town is very small. It's under 2,000 people, and their main employers are a federal prison and an oil refinery. So in the future, in this town, the town is kind of run by this crooked mayor. All of the women who have children are conscribed to work in this fish cannery as indentured laborers, and their children are left to their own devices. And our main characters are Neftali, Proserpina, and I guess Alexei. I don't know if he's going to be as big a character as the two young women. They used to be in a band together. The band is no longer, because they don't have instruments. They don't have anything. Books are banned. Education is banned. Neftali loves to read, and she has lots of illegal books, but she loses most of them at the beginning of the story in a raid. There are these groups of children that go around with this big kind of steampunky machine that chews up and eats the books that are found, and they're paid some kind of pittance by the mayor, and the whole thing. So he talked in his author speech about being influenced by 19th century novels, and also by that volcanic explosion in 1815 that caused the year without a summer across Europe, and how the quality of the sky and the darkness and the instant climate change affected not just like agriculture and business, but also the art of the time, the visual art, the poetry, the writing, how it affected Mary Shelley when she was writing Frankenstein. So Mary Shelley comes up again. And so he kind of put that into the story, that atmosphere, then the way that the terrain looks and the sky looks. He also, with the 18th century, just the children on the street, it's a very Dickensian kind of feel. There's a Victorian steampunk kind of feeling in here, but then it's also very Tex-Mex with English and Spanish, and it's just a really interesting world building. And then the other thing that's really fascinating in this book so far, and I'm not that far into it, I'm maybe like a third of the way, is the way that he uses language. His descriptions, the similes and metaphors, and he juxtaposes some really weird things together that create a mood and an imagery that's really unlike other writers that I've read. And here's the first paragraph. Rain fell hard like slabs of ham as a squad car pulled into the nearly abandoned neighborhood surrounding Angelica Street. The car flashed its swampy red and blue lights over muck-covered potholes and downed serpentine power lines. Wet clusters of trash from rolling cyclones pushed through the air like the ghosts of trees. A revolving cast of squatters often occupied the unleased, half-burned houses on Angelica, most of which were patched with white tarps that now came undone in the wind, their ropes lashing like tentacles toward the gurgling wound of a sky. And so just like the rain falling like slabs of ham, and right away we get that kind of burnt out, smoky, just urban wasteland kind of situation. And it kind of goes on from there. So I'm just constantly being stopped short and just kind of marveling at some of these strange descriptions and combinations. I'll try to pick up a few more examples when I wind it up next week, but I'm enjoying it very much. I have absolutely no idea where this story is going because it's so different. There's also magical realism in here, so it kind of defies a smooth categorization. But I'm loving it. I don't know what is happening or where we're going exactly, but and then of course I am still reading this collection of poetry, 44 poems on being with each other, which was compiled by the poet Padraig Tuama. I think I got about a week more probably on this, so I think I'll finish it roughly with the end of the month. This was my poetry month ride along, and I've been enjoying it very much. And I guess all the tabs are particular poems that I know for sure I want to go back to and read again before I shelve the book. And I'll probably just rotate. I might pull the other volume out and visit some of those again, or I might actually, it might be time to go a little further back and read some older poetry that I haven't read in a while, maybe hit some Dickinson or something like that. So I really am enjoying this practice of keeping some poetry on a daily basis, just sort of bubbling along. I don't know, it's working for me. I'm liking it. That's the end of my reading report. What have you been reading this week? What are you loving or not loving? What are you watching? Do you have any comedy shows to recommend? Any good undiscovered shows or something new that's come out that I should consider? I'll be back pretty soon with that May TBR, and I'm excited as always about the upcoming selections and events. I think that's it for now. So have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.